So David and Goliath's story, while it's very familiar, gives us tremendous insight into selling. Now, let me pause you for a second, because so many people at this point throw up this fence and say, "Oh, I'm not in sales," or "Sales." No. Listen, we're all selling. We're all trying to move people to action in some way, shape, or form, whether we're selling ourselves to get the job, or we're selling our product or a service, or we're selling why coming and being involved in this ministry or this organization is where people's heart aligns. See, sales is all about influencing decisions, and we're doing it every day. So let's take that word sales and demystify it, or take some of the negative off of it, if you don't mind. Okay? Because all we're really talking about is how to move past obstacles towards success and moving an idea forward, or a concept, a product, or a service. Okay? Now, why should you even take this session, or why is this session so important? It's because your customer, your constituent, your patient, your volunteer, your board member, your parishioner, your fill in the blank, your person that you rely upon is changing radically. They're changing radically for a lot of different reasons, but this multi-generational workforce, this multi-generation culture that we're in is the big driver. There's so many different generations, and we've got boomer retirements, and we've got millennials moving into decision making, we've got Gen X leaders, and we have traditionals that are stepping off the stage. So all of that creates chaos. But here's the thing. In the next 18 to 36 months, your customer, your client, your constituent, patient, all the things I mentioned, that person you rely upon is going to change. They're going to change. They're going to be very different than they are right now. And so you have to make adjustments in your game. Now, why David and Goliath? Well, it's an interesting story for a lot of reasons, but let me just tell you the story as a historical event to set this up so that I can make the connection for you. You see, we've all kind of grown familiar with David and Goliath, and we sort of slough it off, and we miss that these two guys were real men. They actually fought. This was a real battle that took place in a real portion of time. Now, you have the two armies of the day. You have the Philistines and the Israelites, and they've come to battle in a place called the Valley of Elah. Now, the Valley of Elah is interesting because it has two equal ridges and then a bowl. So the Philistines are on one ridge, the Israelites are on another, and they're just looking at each other. And they're not moving because neither one wants to go down into the valley and put themselves lower than their enemy. I mean, that's dumb. Militarily, you don't do that. So they both just sit and look at each other. Well, back in that day, one of the ways they would decide a battle was to send out champions. A one-on-one kind of loser leave town match, right? And so out of the Philistine camp walks Goliath. It says he's a 9-foot-tall, bred-for-war machine, dressed in the best armor of the day. This guy's been fighting since he was little, and he is something to behold. He is terrorizing an entire army. No one in the Israelite camp wants to step out and face him. No champion, not even the king, not even King Saul. No one will come and face this guy. And it says that Goliath walks down to the Valley of Elah, and he shouts curses for 40 days and 40 nights. He's trash-talking the team. He's trash-talking the opponent. And he's saying, come on, fight me. Let's go. Why aren't you moving? What, are you so scared? Come on. Surely there's somebody that'll fight me. And for over a month, nobody moves. But into that situation walks a teenage boy named David. He's bringing some cheese and some food to his brothers that are in the army. And he walks onto this situation and he says, hey, what's going on? And they say, well, there's this Goliath guy and nobody will fight him. And David says, well, I'll fight him. I mean, I fought the lion, I fought the bear. God spared me from those. This guy's no bigger or badder. And here's where it gets interesting. He goes to the king, and the king looks him up and down and says, oh, come on. You're just a boy. You couldn't handle it. But something about David causes Saul to say, okay, you can go. But Saul sends him out with this instruction. He says, you're going to need some armor. I tell you what, take my armor. It's the best. And so he stacks his armor onto David. Now here's the problem. David is a teenage boy and Saul's a grown man. I mean, you've got grown man armor on this kid. He's got a shield over, he's dragging a shield, he's got a helmet over his eyes, he's dragging a sword. He can't fight with Saul's armor because it's too much of a good thing. It's not bad, it's just too much of a good thing. So he shucks all that off, goes down to a creek bed, and he picks up 5 rocks. And he takes 5 rocks, put them in his bag, and he walks out to the valley of Elah, pulls 1 rock out of that bag, and he puts it in exactly the right spot. Exactly the right spot to drop that giant that day. But don't miss this. He didn't just drop a giant. He changed the balance of world power with a rock. Think about that for a second. And it says that David used the weapon that Goliath brought out there to fight him with. One of the weapons that he went out there to fight him with, he took it and he actually chopped his head off and killed him. And he caused that giant to fall, and what opened up was so tremendous. I mean, the army swept in and swept the Philistines off the field of battle. So it wasn't just, I beat this. It was, I beat this and this opened up. Now, let's make this relevant to you. A couple things. First off, what I hear all the time is, if I only had fill in the blank. If I only had more money, if I only had more time, if I only had more health, if I only had another person in the operation to help me with this. And here's what's interesting. I want to challenge you today to look like David did at what he did have, not what he didn't have. David had a rock, and he was skillful in using the rock. And if you're skillful with the rock that I'm getting ready to show you, then you're going to be very, very successful at slaying the giants, those obstacles that stand in your way of success. But David used what he had, and he used it skillfully. Okay? Here's the other thing. When Saul offered him his armor, it was too much of a good thing. It wasn't bad. It wasn't that armor was wicked or evil, it was just too much of a good thing. And David knew, I can't fight with this. You see, when you go to conferences and when you study all the time about this technique and that technique and how to be better, it's a lot of good stuff. But if you can't pick through that and find your rock, the thing that you can use, it's just too much of a good thing. So I challenge you, every single time that you go to a conference or a teaching or a learning experience where there's a lot of great information, immediately go sift through and find 5 things that you can take back and pick one of those things, just like David did, and take it into battle. Now, we talked about sales and so forth. I've had the great fortune of training sales teams all over the world for the last number of years, and have seen how this story really can connect to those that sell for a living, or that recognize I've got to influence people every single day as part of my job. So let me break it down for you just a couple different ways. Look at Goliath. Look at the weapons that Goliath brought into battle with him. He brought in very large, ominous weapons. In fact, they were so daunting that they frustrated a whole army and scared an entire army to not come onto the field of battle. So what is the Goliath that you face? What are the weapons that you're up against? Well, I would contend that it's that 8 and 4, that 8 seconds of attention span that people have today. They're not listening to what you have to say. Think about that for a second. Like Goliath brought in a sword, people are bringing 8 seconds of attention span to the battle. So when you call them, or you try and email them, or you're trying to engage them in any way, a lot of times they don't listen. They just don't care. Right? And it doesn't matter how we got here, we're here. This is where we're living, 8 seconds of attention span. So you have to be skillful with your words. They have to be placed exactly in the right spot. The other weapon that Goliath, your Goliath, brings to battle is this weapon of 4. 4 separate generations. And so when you speak, when you talk, when you try to influence, you have 4 separate generations that are hearing things completely differently. And it makes building relationships very, very difficult in our culture today. If you don't know how to navigate that there's 4 generations and how they talk differently, then you're going to get struck down by that weapon. So here's what's interesting. Look at David's weapons. He brings a rock and a sling into battle. And here's what I would contend with you today. That your words are your weapon. What you say is what causes influence. And the sling is how you say them. The words are the rock, what you're going to say. And the sling is how am I going to say it. There's this great phrase that I never want you to forget. If you're not bringing value, you're taking up space. If you're not bringing value, You're taking up space. If you're not telling me something that's valuable to me, I don't want to listen. I don't care. So the point simply is this. Before you go out and try and move someone to action, sell them on an idea, a product, or a service, you need to understand what's important to them. What might they want to hear? How does your product or service or this idea solve their pain, solve their problem, solve their biggest need? Do you even know it? Or are you just so busy trying to do your thing that it's all about you and you just want to tell them all about this and mow them over? See, that won't work in today's culture. What I'm telling you is you need to think about the words you're going to say. Are they going to be meaningful to this person? And secondarily, how am I going to say those words in such a way that they land in exactly the right spot? Because if you place them there, if you put them in the right spot, the giant falls. That obstacle that stands in the way of your success falls. And what opens up is unlimited opportunity. How much would you love to tap into that power? Well, it's very simple. I want to give you 3 steps, and you can go a whole lot deeper with some of the other things that we have after this is over with. But let me give you 3 steps. Here it is, as simple as I can give it to you. The first step is this. I want you to, when you are getting ready to influence someone or call on someone, here's all I want you to do. Will you write down everything you know about that person or that company or that entity? What do you know about them? What do they struggle with? What are their pains? What are they waking up every morning going, gosh, how can we solve this? I really need this. Have you stopped long enough to think about your audience? Who are they? What do you know? Step 1 is spend time obsessing on your audience. Step 2 is this. Take your products or services or whatever it is you're selling, whatever it is you're trying to influence them on, and try to align what your products or services do to solve those problems or to take advantage of those things they want to take advantage of. How does what you sell solve their problem or help them get where they want to go? And step 3 is simply your sling. How do you say that? How do you say that in a way that they know you understand them? Hey, I'm Jay McCord with such and such, and I help people like you solve this problem. A statement like that, a quick 8-second statement like that is very tight, and it shows them that you understand their problem. I'm Jay McCord, and I help people like you, organizations like you, take advantage of this opportunity. Super simple. So as you go into battle, as you try and influence more, I want you to obsess on your audience. I want you to understand who they are. I want you to think about the words that are important to them. And then, secondarily, I want you to consider how your product, services, or this idea or concept solve some of that problem or takes advantage of that opportunity. And then I want you to say it, sling those words in a way that they know you know them. If you do that, giants fall. And your success just opens up. So, here's to all you, your success from today going forward.